What's up, guys? Let's get the party
If you
started.
ever wonder
Let's
why we
do
do
it. Let's.
this is why.
Everybody gonna get loud. Out in the country, we do it like a hold down. Big bass system, dropping thunder all around town. Locked in the back with the doors wide open. Girls looking good and the guys are hoping. Foot stomping, ground pounding, backyard round up. Everybody's here getting down from the ground up. Big bonfire and the music is the blaze, and the girls and the boys are all going crazy. Turn it up, let it out. Everybody shout, get loud, get loud. Tonight we're gonna burn it down. Feel the thunder hit the ground. Everybody gonna get loud. CA is gonna get loud.
What's up, guys? So, we are here this fine Sunday evening with another live show. I want to start this off, by the way. I want to speak on a good friend of the community, to many of the bass heads out there, to a lot of the people who do the shows, the Midwest SPL guys, the Bass Wars guys. Everybody knows El Fuego. He has been a member of the community for a long time, and he is a very well respected member of the community, and he is not doing well. So, guys, shoot out the best wishes that you have to El Fuego and his family in this time of need. So, just putting that on the table. Today, today we're going to talk about good times all around. One of the things I want to talk about was my experience with epoxy resin. So, can you use epoxy resin in place of fiberglass? The answer is, at least in my limited experience, to some degree, you absolutely can. I built my entire pods out of epoxy resin. There's no fiberglass in them. I've got fiberglass sitting right over here. I've got a gallon of fiberglass, the polyester fiberglass resin. I've got a big, huge amount of chop mat. I've got the whole setup to be able to. I need to get some chip brushes, but other than that, I have everything. Um, and I was planning on using it, but the epoxy got so hard just with that fleece and the epoxy. And something I want to point out is some reverse observations. You know how you figure out things as they go behind you, right? One of the things I figured out is that I think, now I don't know that this will work, but I'm pretty sure it will. If you pour out a generous amount of epoxy and then soak your fleece in the epoxy, like literally put it in there like you're going to wash a car with it, right? Like soak it and use the gloves, of course, and pull it out and then stretch it over your surface. Because of the extremely long work time for epoxy, you got hours before it starts to be anything to worry about. You could soak it in resin, then stretch it over your form, staple it down, clean up your stapler because you don't want epoxy sitting up. And again, it takes like uh, 8 or 9 hours before it even starts to do anything that would plug anything up. So got plenty of time. I think you'll be able to create any shape you want and make something that's really, really rigid with just one coat, never having to actually put any more on it. And that's really cool, especially if you want to use something that has a specific texture or specific color to it already. Because the epoxy dye dries dead clear. If you don't do anything to it, it would look pretty cool. Um, you get the benefit of it's easy to get off your hands. It doesn't it's completely different from fiberglass in that regard. It's just a whole lot easier to work with. So there's what I'm trying to say is I think it opens up doors for being able to be creative and build unique, interesting things that you may not have been able to do. Working with a material that has an extremely long work time, has a very low odor, very low noxious gases, um, very forgiving material. I think it's pretty cool. There's a whole lot of stuff that I plan on trying to do with epoxy resin. Oh yeah, and fiberglass. Most fiberglass chemistries will stick to the epoxy. So if you wanted to create something out of epoxy and then fiberglass it, you can. They will combine together and will adhere to each other. So there's that. Let's see what's going on in the chat because it's going over here. It's doing things. And how is everybody this fine evening? Jason said, Houston checking in. 88 hot and summer isn't even started yet. Well, I'm looking forward to it because I'm sick of the cold and I'm sick of this damn rain. I want to move on into the warm heat. The long nights. The short nights and long days. Being able to go outside at 10 o'clock at night and be comfortable and warm and dry and do cool stuff. I don't mind sweating. I just, the cold's just gotten to where I don't want to deal with that anymore. I used to not have any problems with the cold, but as I get older, the cold sucks more and more. And I just ain't got no time for that. Ain't nobody got time for no cold. Bobby B. Bobby B said, "Where's here?" Man, I hear you. I don't even know. And PSC, CIE, my brother from another mother. What's up, man? D. Hernan says, "Hey, hi." Jason said, "Hang in there, El Fuego." Yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely. Franco Quay popped in the house, said, "Hey, everybody," and he's hollering out for El Fuego. Hey, El Dago, El Fuego. I like it. PSC member for 5 months. Heck yeah, man. Good times. Door panels are going to scream. Jason said, "What's up?" So, I've got everything on my panels looking pretty good. They sound good. Boy, I tell you, I had some screwy things happen in the sound department. I'll tell you guys about here in a second. I need to, support my addiction. So it is what it is. I had planned on going behind the resin with layers of fiberglass. As case in point, I have this resin sitting over here that I could do. But God, I was like, well, why? This thing is strong as hell. What's the point, So for now, there's no fiberglass behind it. It is literally just fleece and resin. That's it. And I'm kind of blown away by how well that worked. Sounds good. It's lightweight. It's strong. And the texture is good. I do want to do some more. Depends on what you're trying to do, really. If you want it to be slick, smooth, like, a car body finish, you pretty much have to finish it like a car. You go through there and lay on some chop mats so you can get that the texture down, and then you sand and sand and sand and sand and sand. Then you body work and you sand some more, and eventually you get to where you can paint it and get that mirror finish. I absolutely did not want that mirror finish at all. In fact, that was the last thing I wanted to be able to have, is that mirror finish. I wanted a nice rough texture that sort of matched the doors that are in there now. Kind of a leather looking appearance. I think I achieved something in that regard. I am also boosting up the texture on the doors. I'm going to be doing a bed liner over the bottom part of the doors as well, so that the texture on the box and the doors will match pretty close, and it'll look like it belongs in there, like it was made that way from the factory. That's kind of what I was shooting for. I had no delusions about actually getting to that point. I was hoping that here was my my goals. I told you my goals. My expectations were that maybe, if luck was with me, I would end up with something that sounded pretty good and stayed on the doors, didn't fall off, and it looked presentable. That was my goal. That was my expectations. I think I exceeded the sound. I exceeded the structure, because these things are rock solid. You could pick the whole Tahoe up with these panels. You just push up on them and the whole thing would come up. And the appearance is pretty damn good. So I think I exceeded my expectations, and I also met my goals. So that's what I was looking for. Now, as far as what I'm going to do in the future, that's up for grabs. I've got some ideas floating around in my brain, because this is what bassheads' brains do. You're constantly cooking up new ideas. I've got a couple of things in my head that I may do with the doors. One thing I want to do, though, is improve that top section right in front of the armrest and the handles. That part that's the top, that the roof of the box. It's rough. The passenger side is pretty good. It's pretty flat and pretty smooth. It's rough, but it's smooth rough. Yeah, it's like a furry cat. It's smooth, but it's rough. You know what I'm saying? Now, the driver's side, on the other hand, is more lumpy, and it's not as formed. So I got some ideas on how to fix that, and I'm still tossing ideas around. But I don't want to dive into anything too deep on it, because we got a show coming up next weekend, and I want to have it ready to roll for that show. And so here's the thing: after I got the things in the Tahoe, this is where I ran into my my sound problem, and I'm embarrassed, but I don't. I share everything: the good, the bad, the problems, the solutions. Well, so when I had the original speakers in there running off of one amplifier, I was running two. The last time for a long time, I've been running two sets of 6.5s. I had two 6.5s on one side, two on the other. And I always, from the very beginning, back when I first started messing with this stuff, I ran two separate sets of wires to the doors. Since I actually have three sets of wires run to the doors, but the other set is questionable. So I had the tweeters on one wire on each door, and I had the mids on another wire on each door. The last time I hooked them up, I had both mids on one wire and both tweeters on one wire. But I was sending a full range signal to all of them, because the tweeters had capacitors on them, and I just sent a full range signal. I was sending the left and the right to the amplifier, and it was sending out two sets. Again, it was full range. That was key. It didn't matter which channel went to what, they were all full range. When I got the new stuff in there, now I had a tweeter, which I wanted to put in check. I have the capacitors on them too, and I have a woofer which I don't want to send 20,000 hertz to. So I had to actually put crossovers in. So I go in there and the normal layout for the channels, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2 being tweeters, 3 and 4 being mids. That's usually how it's done. And I set everything up, and I'm starting to try to blend and EQ speakers. And I'm sitting in the Tahoe and I'm doing EQ, and I'm like, why does this sound wrong? And I just kept messing with it, and it kept sounding worse. So I was like, why is this all messed up? I didn't hear it because, okay. So what had happened was I was EQing 1 tweeter over here, 2 mid over there, 3 mid over here, and 4 tweeter over there. So I was EQing a tweeter and a mid on either side as if they were tweeter, mid, right? And that was not working. And I was, yeah, it was all messed up. So if you can imagine this, the crossover points, whenever I was trying to EQ the mid tweeter combo on the mid with mid stuff, the tweeter wasn't playing, right? Because the frequency range was so low that the tweeter just wasn't playing because of the capacitor. So I was hearing the mid, and whenever I was EQing the tweeters, I was EQing the tweeter over here and a mid over there. But guess what? This mid over here wasn't playing because the frequency range was too high for it. So I was EQing, what I was hearing when I was EQing was the mid on the left side or the right side and the tweeter on the opposing side. Everything was screwy. And yeah, that took me, believe it or not, that actually took me a while. I didn't figure it out last night. Last night I come in, I was just depressed. Today I figured it out. Now on the videos that you guys saw, I shot multiple clips. That is literally like 5 minutes after I fired the system up. And what I was running at that time was full range to all the drivers. Again, I had the tweeters protected with capacitors. So when you're hearing that, that is no EQ, no crossovers, nothing. It's full range signal going to everything, and it sounded pretty damn good. You guys heard the shorts. You know what it sounded like, and it sounds better in person than it sounds in the video. And it sounded good in the video. Today, I figured this out, and the whole world is a better place for that. I'm very excited about that. So yeah, everybody has, I mean, it's such a simple thing. How do you make that mistake? It's easy, man. If you do something enough times, you're going to have those problems pop up. So I straightened some things out and got a little bit closer to where I wanted to be. Play It and Live It said, popped up and said, howdy, 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 howdy. Team Chevy, Comment King, Maryland, sliding in. Yes, sir. PSC said he's excited about, I'm so excited, my picture in my head is going to become reality. Dude, that is a huge thing. And see, I can see a lot of things in my head. I can visualize something amazing, but the ability to take the thing that I can see in my head and make it a physical thing, man, that's a whole skill set that I'm having to really, really learn, because there's so, for me, in the financial world that I'm in, and what I do now, which is YouTube, I basically have to do everything. I can't just shop it out. And so I literally have to figure out how to do all the things that I used to pay someone else to do. That's a big burden on the shoulders, man. And so turning something from a vision into a physical thing is huge. And if you have the money to do it, if I was still driving a truck, I would absolutely be paying somebody to do all this stuff. No questions asked. I know, because I did. I'd pay someone to build my box. I may design it or come up with the idea for it, but I'd pay someone. I'd pay someone to do this and this and this, all these things because I'd have more money than time. Right now, I have more time than money, so I'm utilizing the resource that I have. Us whole guys ain't got time for no cold temperatures. For real, man. The cold sucks. Franco Quaid says, are my A-pillars still playing? Yes. What I did was I set up a crossover at right now. I have a really I still haven't EQ'd after the fiasco yesterday. I figured it out today and I got that sorted. And I just went back to a flat EQ because obviously that EQ was hot garbage. And I have just crossover set up and levels set up. So I don't have any EQ action going on right now. But the way I've got it split is it's 80 right now is 80 hertz on the 10s. I'm crossing over at 80 hertz and 5K, 4 or 5K. I can't remember which one I landed on, somewhere around there. And then at the same point from that up on the tweeters. Then on my A pillars, the tweeters and the A pillars haven't played in years. They've been blown forever. I just used those for those 3.5 inch mid pods. And I've got those set up at like 500 hertz, all the way to like 19K with a really slow roll off up high. So they're not playing, or like 17K. They're 500 to 17K. And I've got like a 6 dB roll off. Oh, no, that's not correct either. I can't remember where I set it. I do remember what I did though. What I did was I had them set with the roll off wherever I stopped it at. I wanted it to roll all the way out to 17 kilohertz. And it was a long slope. So it completely goes cold at 17 kilohertz. And then from that point on, it just rolls back in. I forgot where I actually had that crossover, but they're basically fillers in between the hump that is the woofer and the hump that is the tweeter. They're kind of a filler in there. And so I have them set to where they just kind of come in a little bit and give a little bit of presence up high, a little bit of that barky, snare, vocal, saxophone, guitar stuff, information that's kind of pulled up. So it's up here and they sparkle real nice. Those speakers they suck by themselves. They're horrible by themselves. You would not want those and tweeters as your whole setup. But when you mix them between other speakers, they have the most amazing ability to fill in gaps and just really sound amazing. So yeah, they're still in there and still playing. The tweeters do not play right now. Dorian's DIY audio. Hey, nice job on the door panels. Thank you. I was terrified to do that. That was a scary, scary thing because I'm working with the only set of doors I have. It's either all or nothing. It was like it was a big deal because I went from having something that's pretty good and then throwing all that in the wind and hoping I ended up with something at least as good, doing something I had never done before. So that was a big leap, and I was very, very, very scared. D. Hermanson, I love that name. I always screw it up. D. Hermanson, and Maine said, I'm sick of the cold too. Yeah. Thank you, brother. Thank you for the doors look good, he says. Oh, man. Let's see what's going on down here. Play it and live it said, I understand what you mean. It took me 3 months to get my front stage playing just right. I spent nights and days trying to get the frequency blend with all of the songs. Yeah. I'm going to cover something on that. Let me talk about that. So the way I tune, okay, whenever I say tune, this is the EQ process. This is nothing but the EQ process. We've assuming that you've already got your frequencies, your roll-offs done, your crossovers are set up, and you've got something that works. Oh man. Forgive me. If I don't blow my nose, I'll be sneezing constantly. All right. Assuming you've already got your crossovers set and your levels are good, so you've got a pretty reasonably, good, rich, full sound. The way I do this is I pull up my tablet and I use my tablet's mic. And you can say, well, that sucks, but I've used it so many times that I've developed an ear for it. I know what I'm listening to. It's is it calibrated? I don't know. It's calibrated to a tablet, so it's. But the good thing is it's in the center of the vehicle, so it gives me a center EQ, which is what I tune for because I have demos. I'm passenger, not alone, but with people. Okay, um, and I want them to have a good experience. So I pull one speaker, say my left tweeter, for example, and I know where my cutoffs are, where my frequency range is. I pull up pink noise on. I always use pink noise. I pull up pink noise on the tablet and let it run through the system, and then I pull up a little EQ thing. I forget what it's called. I pull that guy up, and it gives me a nice EQ band of what's actually happening in the cab, and I'll tune that tweeter to where it's more or less not flat, but at least there's no spikes in it. I'll look for any spikes in that frequency range that tweeter's playing on the RTA. That's what I was thinking of, RTA. I'll look for any spikes and then I'll tune those spikes down to where I get a relatively smooth representation of sound. Then I go to the other tweeter and I'll do the same thing on that one. And they won't be the same. Okay, they won't be the same. Then I pick another driver, whatever group, wherever it's at, I tune it to where it's relatively smooth. When I say smooth, it ain't gonna be flat and straight, but I don't want any humps. If there could be a little bump like that, I don't want any spikes in that frequency response. I tune those away, and I do every speaker that way, including the subwoofers when I'm tuning SQ. On the subwoofers, if I'm tuning SQ, I do the same thing. I'll usually pull on subwoofers. I'll usually pull 25 hertz, whatever the box is tuned at. Okay. Say the box is tuned at 32, and you listen to 28 hertz stuff. If it can safely play 28 hertz, all right, and without unloading the drivers, I'll go in there if needed and bump 28 hertz up a little bit to make it a little bit more even. Or I'll take the peak frequency that the box is tuned at and squish it down. One of those two or both to get a relatively flat response out of that. And that's my starting point in the subwoofer. So once I've done all that, then I go into the subwoofer and I'll play a sweep. So it goes right all the way down and back up and down and back up and down and back up. And I'll sit there and adjust the EQ in that range until it sounds to my ear like, it's important what it sounds like to my ear, not a meter, not a room, REQ or none of that. I want to know what it sounds like to my ear hole. I'll adjust that EQ until I get the notes that at the bottom of the frequency range and the ones at the top that it's playing all sounding very similar in volume to my ear. There's a whole lot of other stuff going on. These are just different components. So yeah, it's a whole lot of tuning. Then I pull up some different songs, listen to them, I pull up songs with extremes. Like I pull up something that's got crunching guitars. I mentioned Nickelback, Animal. That's a great song because it's got really crunchy guitars. And I'll run that. Lionel Richie, All Night Long. I'll use that one because it has very dynamic range. And then I'll pull up something old like Ambrosia or Bread or something like that. Something that has kind of muted highs. It's a little bit mellow. I'll pull all three of those and I'll go back and forth and I'll tune to where I get all of them. I'll adjust look tweak. It's mainly going to be your highs that you're going to struggle with. Okay. My tweeters and my high range speakers, I'll tweak those a little bit until all three of those songs sound good. The bread or ambrosia is going to sound a little bit muted like this, and you're going to have to pull your tweeters up to get that to sound better. But then as soon as you play, something with brilliant highs in it, it's going to be overwhelming. So then you have to dial it back, and you have to kind of play with that back and forth until you find that sweet spot. And another thing that you'll run into is when if this happens, you need different equipment. If you crank the thing up and you get to a point up in the higher volume where it starts to distort, your amplifier needs to be bigger. And if you've already maxed out your speakers, like you've got 50-watt speakers and you got a 50-watt RMS amplifier, and it's starting to, guess what? You're going to need different speakers. If you're wanting to crank it past the point to where the amplifier and speaker combo can do its thing cleanly, you need different equipment. More than likely, it's power though. It's usually not the speakers. The speakers usually don't go like that. Anyway, I could go for a million years on this stuff, but play it limited as soon as I get it right. Instant save. Yeah, always run. I run 3 EQs. I run my private EQ, which is what I listen to when I'm riding around or when I have my wife in the vehicle. I run my demo EQ, which is completely different. That's for straight up blowing people's brains out. And then my third EQ is my save. So as I'm doing something, I find a pretty good thing, I'll stash it in there. And then later on, I can pull that back up and make it one of the main EQs, but I always have a third saved EQ. So yeah, save, man. Dorian's DIY Audio. Nice to catch you live today. I gave you a shout out in my pods video. Really? I'll have to check that out, man. Have to check that out. Jason said, on this setup, I'm running 3 different speaker wire gauges. 16 gauge for the tweets, 14 gauge for the mids, and 12 gauge for the big mids. The right 3 wires are loomed together, and the left 3 wires loomed together. Hopefully no mix-ups. You know what? I'm going to give you a tip. And you know how, like I said, you learn stuff that's behind you, right? 9 wire. 9 wire. That's the trick. Enough said. 9 wire, 9 wire. Colors. It's a wonderful thing. 9 wire. Start using it. Buy a big ass roll of 9 wire and use it for everything. It is so underused. Yeah, no shit. No mix ups, dude. That's a constant process. D said, got to go. Y'all have a good night. D, you have a good night too. PSC, when I'm in the hospital in 2 weeks, my door panels are going to be my motivation to get better. No kidding, man. And we all need that. You give them nurses hell. Jason said, yeah, the spikes in response are much more noticeable than dips. Yeah. That's what you focus on once you're to the point of EQ and things. Yeah, I do if that's the first thing I do is do a pink noise smoother. That's what I call it, smoothing. And I get everything smoothed. And then it's going to be roughly flat overall once you put this driver and this driver and this driver and this driver, you're going to end up with a roughly flat EQ. And at that point, I usually tweak it to music. Something else I like to do that I wish DSPs had. I wish every single DSP had this function. A master EQ. Why? Why no master EQ? So, example, you EQ each speaker and get it to where you want it, but then you want the whole overall sound to be different. And you could use a master EQ for, just a master EQ so that you can kind of V the whole sound, or you could peak, whatever you want that can change from song to song or from day to day without having to go through and EQ all the individual speakers. A master, why not? Why is there no master EQ? It seems like the simplest thing to have. I don't know why they don't have that in there. Um, Elton John. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, Elton John. I'm a fan. Like I'm an old soul, and even though an old soul, I'm also an old guy. So I'm an old guy who is also an old soul. Uh, Back in the day, we did. I was listening to the 1950s, and there's still some tracks. I'm not into specifically. I'm not referring to specifically how a music sounds, how an artist sounds, how a specific, uh, like whether I like the lyrics or any of that stuff. It's more about the quality of the production of the music that you're listening to, the recording itself, the producing and the mastering and the media that it's coming from, how good of it, because you want, and then also what type of extremes that stuff goes to. So, like having a bass heavy song to get the subwoofer set to where there's a limit, having really a song with big highs in it for that, having songs with big drums for, you know, you need different materials to get a rounded tune that can do everything. Some of the hardest stuff to get right though is actually guitar rock, hard guitar, like some of the harder Metallica songs. Nickelback's a great choice because they have lots of good drums and dynamic drums. But getting those guitars to sound right, the distorted guitars, it's actually harder than you think. You would think that'd be pretty easy because it's already distorted, but trust me, it's not. Getting that distortion to come through, those distorted guitars to come through while still also producing vocals and drums on those same speakers, that's a thing, man. That requires a whole new set of skills for a stereo system. So it's not easy being cheesy. Which brings up another thing I wanted to talk about today. So you guys know that I just put a set of 10s in my doors. Now, if you've ever experimented with mid ranges or with speaker sizes for your mids and highs, you're familiar with the variances going from like a 2.5 inch mid range to like a 6 inch or maybe an 8 inch mid range, 6.5 or a 6x9, right? You can hear the difference in a lot of those things. Obviously, the larger driver tends to produce uh, lows better. But the thing is, most of those drivers, like the 6x9s and the 6.5, those are actually woofers and tweeters. That woofer is designed to play 40, 50 hertz pretty good and the full range. They're designed to play a full range. We can give them a crossover point and use them as a mid range, but they're designed to play full range. When you're talking about a mid range speaker, no matter how big it is, it's still designed to play mid range. It's designed to play, 200 hertz to 5 kilohertz. That's what it's designed for. It could be a 15 or 20 15s that are designed to play that frequency. Now, having said that, the larger cone still gives you the ability to get more bottom end out of them. What I've noticed right away, though, is the vocals. Okay, you could set up a 6.5 inch speaker and then a 10-inch speaker with the same exact frequency cutoff, the same enclosure, the same everything. EQ'd exactly the same, like a flat EQ. The 10 is going to give you a much more authority in the sound. It doesn't sound like it's having a hard time doing it. It's just naturally going to give it to you. It's going to sound more natural on lower notes. It's going to sound more natural on louder, higher notes. There's just so much more happening there. And that's an absolute thing. If you guys have the opportunity to run larger drivers in the front of your vehicle, you're going to appreciate the effort that it takes to get them up there. They are an incredible upgrade. Now, having said that, you can still run the little guys. Like I have a set of 3.5s up there to give a little sprinkle because the larger cone doesn't respond to the higher frequencies quite as well as the smaller cone does. It's just way more to move and way more resisting to be able to do those, 5K and up reproductions. So it kind of comes down to, two-way, three-way, four-way kind of a situation. But it's a big upgrade and it does sound absolutely juicy. Let's see here. What did I miss? Holy crap. All right, Play It and Live It said, I may sound like an oldie, but I use the head unit to EQ the overall highs. Gotcha, brother. I use, once I get my tune set up exactly the way I want it, I will go in there on my tablet and tweak the master EQ at my tablet. I just wish I didn't have to. Have disabled the DSP the head unit has. I even ask AI to help me. Sure. There's actually, I keep seeing ads on Facebook for some kind of AI that it has an automatic EQ something. I don't know what that is. It could be an app. It could be a piece of equipment. I really don't know. The advertisement doesn't tell you anything except for you want it. And it's like $50 or something like that. I don't remember. Anyway, yeah. That's the thing. Sometimes AI can actually be helpful. Wanting to install a Big 3. Can you do a video on how to install it? I do believe I have one up on that. Maybe I should look into it. I'm pretty sure I have a couple of videos on that. The main thing, in Big 3 is not complicated. Essentially, this is what you do. You're going to see, what did you do? Big 3. Okay. So you want to put a large power wire running from the alternator to the battery. You've already got one. Okay. Leave it there. Run another one beside it, like a alt gauge or bigger. Right beside the old one from the alternator output to the battery. That's one. The second one is you want to run a ground. This is the one that matters more. You want to run a ground from the bracket or bolt on your alternator casing to the battery, straight to the battery. Because what's going to happen is the battery's picking up, it's complicated, but it's going through a whole bunch of stuff. You want to avoid that, run a ground straight to the battery. So you have an alternator, power wire from the power post right beside the factory one from the alternator to the battery, ground from one of the bolts or nuts or bracket of your alternator casing straight to the battery. And then you want to run a ground from battery to whatever you're attaching to in the back. So if you're attaching to the body, you want to run a ground from the battery to the body, the same chunk of metal that you're attaching to in the back. That and of course, like if it's a pickup truck and you got a cab, running a ground to the main part of the cab, a good solid location with good welded points or a good solid piece of metal, nice thick metal, clean it off, brush it off, make a hole, put a big old lug in it, or find a location where there's already a bolt, pull the bolt out, polish them, paint off that area where that bolt was, clean it up real good. Same thing with the bolt, make sure there's no gunk in it. spray a little bit of WD-40 on it, put your lug on there and screw it down, lock it in. And you want that ground to be super solid, and you want to make sure the best way to do it is to run the ground from the battery all the way into the vehicle, wherever your amplifier is going to be. That is essentially the big three. There's a whole lot of ways to do it, but all you're wanting to do is make a big heavy duty path for your alternator to be able to get power to the battery without any restrictions. So you want those, the positive and the ground, upsized. And then you want your ground from your battery to run to your amplifier. Make sure that that whole system is upsized. Because right now you're running from the alternator to the bracket to the engine block to the motor mounts, and then through some rubber stuff and some other stuff to the frame. And from the engine, from the alternator to the bracket to the engine block, probably from the alternator bracket to the heads to the block to a bolt on the back of the block that connects to the firewall through a little thin ground strap that's probably corroded all to crap. And that's your ground. It's horrible. You want to replace all that and run a solid wire from point A to point B so you can skip all that stuff. You don't take it out, just add to it. So yeah. That's essentially how it's done. I don't want 9-wire because it doesn't lay flat on the carpet. I have to run under the carpet because the door sills are chock full of wires. Door sills are chock full of wires. Yeah, you kind of have to think it through where you're going to run it, but just putting the bug in your brain because you probably hadn't thought about it. It's good times, man. 9-wire is your friend. If you can figure out a way to make it work, you'll find that it saves you so many headaches later. When you think you'll remember what wire does what, you think, oh, this wire, I'll definitely never forget this wire. Trust me, you will forget that wire. You won't remember what it was. And you'll have to figure it out. PSC said Van Halen's another excellent choice. Eddie Van Halen was amazing. Van Halen is I love Van Halen. Eddie Van Halen, Alex Van Halen, Wolfgang Van Halen. If you guys don't know, Wolfgang, Eddie's son, can literally do anything. He arguably can play guitar better than his dad. He also plays the bass, extreme levels of bass, and he's a monster on the drum kit, as well as a vocalist and a songwriter and a producer. This cat can walk into a studio and put a whole thing together all by himself. Wolfgang is badass, guys. He's a very underrated everything. He's an extremely talented cat. Of course, he comes from a family of musicians in multiple generations, but he's a badass. El Fuego is in the house. Where the hell did you go? El Fuego is in the house. What's up, El Fuego? Next, he's 72. I can't believe, did you actually show up? I thought oh my God, hold on. Guys, this isn't somebody else, is it? This is the El Fuego. Sir, I'm so glad you're going to get a star. You're getting a star, El Fuego. How are you doing, my friend? Holy crap. I don't know what Nexus 72 is. I think it's probably a song or something. Chris Lamb said, do I absolutely have to have a DSP? No, but you can pick up a B2 DSP for $150. Just go over to Big Jeff and use discount code CAE. Save even more money than that. Why would you not want a DSP? You know what I'm saying? That's a better question. It's so much control. It's a whole toolbox. Do you, for example, you got a crescent wrench. Do you need a socket set? No. Do you need a set of open-end wrenches? No. The crescent wrench will do it all, right? But having the right wrench for the job is a whole lot better than trying to use a crescent wrench. Hopefully that answered your question. Have you hooked up your sub yet? Oh yeah. Yeah, it's hooked up. I got it hooked up. Yeah. Yep, it's playing 50 hertz and above, up 50 hertz to 100 hertz. I've got the big ones playing 0 to 50. Yeah, 0 is the thing. It's deep, and it's literally my sub enclosure, my main subs literally play almost exclusively wasted information. um, the little guy plays from 50 to 100. And of all the things, if you're an SQ guy and you want to build something that sounds amazing, the first step is not to put a big subwoofer in your trunk. No. That's not it. The first step is to figure out how to get some kind of sealed enclosure sub in the front of your vehicle. No matter where you have to put it in the front, as far forward as possible. That changes everything. I mean, everything. Like, you know how much putting a sub in the back helps? It's that plus more, because now the frequencies aren't coming from back there, they're coming from in front of you, and that builds your sound field in such a way that you cannot do with a rear mounted sub enclosure. It has to be in the front. Find somewhere to put a sub up there, your life will change forever. Is SQ advice. Yes. And Jason said Big 3 is adding extra ground between wires and body, frame and engine, not difficult, right? Yep. But like I said, it's just a matter of beefing up everything. Oh my God. Jason said, "Hey, Fuego, how you doing? How you doing? So everyone, PSC is throwing it out there. Said wife is home and from work. I love my beautiful wife so much. Yep. Give her a big old hug, man, because she's awesome. Chris Lamb, and grounding to the bolts under the seat's a good idea. Usually, okay, there's kind of qualifiers on that. If you don't know, then no. But the thing is, to do that, you need to pull the seat out and get it out of the car and get those bolts down there and ground under that seat frame to the body of the frame. It usually bolts down to the frame in the same location, but get that paint cleaned up and get the brackets and everything underneath the bracket, all that stuff polished out. Then put your lug on, put the seat back in, clamp it down. If you do it just willy-nilly on top, there's a real good chance you could end up with a bad ground and get a really noisy alternator whine in your system, as well as possibly blowing up amplifiers. So the answer to your question is complicated. Under the right circumstances, it's totally fine. But the right circumstances is a whole lot of extra work. That's my answer. El Fuego, throwing up prayers for your brother. Absolutely. Thank you. Let's see here. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Are you running the little 65s? Those things are crazy, man. The little 6.5s. I've still got them. I've got a set sitting in there. I got 2 sets, actually. I'm really impressed with the recoil 6.5s and the little Dub Bunts machetes that I was running forever. They've all been great drivers. And you're very much welcome. Alex, Alex, OG. The new doors are too impressive. Thank you, sir. Like I said, it was a happy train wreck. I was just trying to keep from hitting a tree, like you're going down the road and you hit a patch of ice and somebody's in the car with you, right? You hit a patch of ice and you start going and you're steering and hitting the brake and you're doing the thing. And then you wind up like sliding it up into a perfect spot and stopping. And it's like the best place you could have possibly stopped. And they go, wow, that was amazing. And you're thinking, man, I was just trying to keep from dying, right? That's how this build was. I was just trying to keep from hitting a tree. And it just so happened that I found a good parking spot. You know what I'm saying? It's the truth. We took a whole lot of chances, and not only was I doing something that was outside of my expertise and my comfort zone, but I was also using materials that was kind of unorthodox, and even going against some of the people that I trust their opinion, saying, hey, that's probably not the best idea. So I was throwing it against the wall in multiple locations, and I'm just glad it all worked out, man. Thank you. Jason said, Lim, DSP could do so much. Better EQ, better crossovers, full time delay, etc. Can take your system to the next level. I've been using DSPs for 20 years now. I will always use one. Yeah, exactly. I mean, like I said, crescent wrench, socket set. You pick, man. That's the choices we have. That sound is what I got. Yeah. Jason said, I got to go too later, everyone. Chris Lamb. Oh, the 412s. Oh, I know who you are now. Okay. Yeah. They still banging, right? Slamming. All right, man. Got you, boss. Yeah, he's the one. I'm pretty sure you're the one that bought my Depth Bounce 12s. I told you they'd last forever, man. As long as you don't do stupid shit to them, you give them 2,000 watts RMS, they don't care. They'll go and go and go. You see, I'm looking for another amp to run my DS18 5 1/4. Okay. Yeah, no doubt. I'm doing the best I can with what I got, brother. I'm not really sure. I have to dig into that because I need to know a lot more information before I can give any advice in that department. Alex said, Fort Leonard Woodwinders. Yeah, been there, done that. But so we come to the point to where I ask if you guys have any questions. So I know you guys have been asking questions since the beginning, and we've talked about the big mids. We talked about the epoxy resin and whether or not, look at that. See if we can make this camera do things. Focus you. Yeah. We talked about all the stuff. And so now's the point to where I ask you guys if you have any questions and throw them out there. Let's see here. Because y'all let me know. Any questions? Thank you, Franco Quaid. You have a great weekend.
Out here banging up and down the street, slamming it to the ground. Big subwoofers are getting loud. You can feel the booming sound. Getting ready to go. Got it shined up for the show. Hours charging, amps are amping, gonna let the woofers blow. Another one bites the dust. Another one bites the dust. And another one goes, and another one goes, and another one bites the dust. We got more at home. Another one bites the dust. Eyes are glowing and the amp is smoking. Subs are cherry red. I'ma keep jamming, gotta keep the bass slamming, gonna go hard till they're dead. Full power, gotta let it go. 20 hertz and floating in the air. Sparks are flying, voice coils are frying, and the smoke is in the air. Another one bites the dust. Another one bites the dust. And another one goes, and another one goes, and another one bites the dust. Hey, we got more at home. Another one bites the dust.